It's been good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. This webinar today has been organised by the Global WASH Cluster's Climate Change Working Group in partnership with SANIHUB and the German WASH Network. This webinar today is a little bit different from our previous webinars. We haven't come today here with any answers about what climate resilient sanitation is. And I think by the end of this session, we'll have more questions than answers. So I'll give you an idea of what we have planned today. As you can see, we have a lot of speakers from a lot of different organizations, and we've all come here today to try and delve into this issue about what climate resilience sanitation would mean for the humanitarian sector. This is an area that hasn't really been explored yet. There's no real technical guidance for us. We will start with an introduction to climate resilient sanitation in general from BC. And then we're going to present two case studies. So these aren't case studies that are about climate resilient sanitation. They are regular humanitarian sanitation projects. And we're looking at them today through a climate lens to try and understand what we have as a sector in terms of capacity to respond to climate, and also where the gaps are, and try and start some discussion, which we will move on to after the case studies. So thank you to the presenters who are presenting the case studies for being open and willing to share their work and have us all look at it and think about how strong they are, how climate resilient they are in this changing context that we're facing. So I'll give you a little bit of background to why we're having this discussion. In the past couple of years, there's been a lot of policy change, and that's really directed us as humanitarians to respond to the climate crisis. These are two of the big ones. You can see first here the Climate Charter, which over 440 humanitarian organizations have now signed this charter. And most recently, just in June, IASC released the Climate Crisis Roadmap for the humanitarian sector. And between these two documents, these two commitments, we can see that we as a sector have to respond to the climate crisis, and that includes in our sanitation programming as well. So the Climate Change Working Group was established last year to try and start working on these issues and understand what this new policy means for us as WASH actors. So we quickly found three challenges that were stopping us or preventing us from moving forward with doing work around climate. The first one was around a lack of common understanding of key terms and concepts relating to climate change. So these haven't been defined or agreed as a sector. For example, even the term climate resilient WASH, there's no agreed understanding of what that means. The second big challenge we face is that our WASH teams in country are time poor. They're already working under a lot of pressure and with a lot of priorities, and they don't necessarily have time to stop and step back and think about climate change and perhaps how they need to work differently to address the issue. And another thing that has come out is this missing middle between policy and practice. So we have these new policy developments that instruct us to respond to climate change. At country level, we know that our WASH teams are already responding to climate change, and the communities we work with are already dealing with climate change and making decisions based on this context. But there's something missing in the middle, which is what we're going to discuss today, what's missing, and what we really need to link the policy with our practice. So within the Climate Change Working Group, we have recently received funding from BHA to work on this approach that we think will help tackle some of these challenges. So we have a two-pronged approach. The first is to develop a framework for WASH and climate action. So over the next 11 months, we'll have lots of discussions with WASH actors, of which this webinar today is one of them. Also with other humanitarian actors, with climate actors and development actors, to really understand how we need to look at humanitarian WASH and climate action, perhaps look at if we have any blind spots and what our priorities should be. That work's being done at a global level. Then at country level, we are supporting 3 WASH clusters to develop their own climate action plans. So the work on the first one for Ethiopia has already started, and this work will really help the WASH actors responding at country level to understand what they need to do. So to break down this huge challenge of climate change and think about what positive steps forward we as WASH actors can take. So with that, I'm going to hand you over to BC. He's a WASH specialist with UNICEF, and he's going to give our first presentation.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you see my screen, please?
Yes, also. Just not on
Okay.
presenter mode yet.
Okay, I will. Is it clear now? Is it okay now?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks so much, Kodesa. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is BC Agbiremi. I work with the WASH section of UNICEF, and I'm based in New York.
BC, sorry to interrupt you. You are sharing your presenter's screen, not only the screen slide you're showing. So we see also the next slides and the note section and so on.
Okay. How do I remove that now? Just a minute. Is it better now?
Not yet. Let's see.
Uh-oh.
May take a second. Not sure. No, not changing.
But I think we can have the presentation like this, right?
Okay, sorry
Like
about
at least
that.
the presenter both.
Fine. Okay. Oh, you want to share from your side? I sent to.
No, just feel free to continue like this. I think.
Okay. Apology for that mix-up. So thanks so much, and just as said earlier, we just want to share some notes on the climate-related sanitation, and again, it's one of those topics, emerging topics that we have to deal with. And of course, let's set the same for the discussion in terms of sanitation and climate. Why now? And I think all of us agree that all of us have seen the impact of this effect of climate change on sanitation, and there is need for increased understanding, of this, so that you can be able to respond effectively. Then, apart from the adaptation, there is the issue of even mitigation. There are issues about growing evidence that there's impact of sanitation on climate, and there's impact of climate on sanitation, and so that's coming up gradually. And in terms of policy, most policies that disconnect between sanitation and climate in policy and practice, and of course, financing is so limited. And for us to address these issues, we have to make sure that we put appropriate interventions in place, capacity in place, guidance in place to make sure that we're able to mobilize appropriate financing to support sanitation intervention within these climate issues we are dealing with. Now, again, all this is just to set the scene for our discussion. I mean, if you look at impact of climate and sanitation, of course, I mean, most of us probably know this, but again, as I said, is to set the scene for our discussion. Of course, we know the effect of high temperature due to extreme climate events. The climate event caused sanitation services to fail, disruption of sanitation services that due to flood, rain, heat, storms, destroyed sanitation services and infrastructure. And of course, failed services, again, lead to poorly managed sanitation. And the poorly managed sanitation is what leads to the issue of health. We have purely managed sanitation and increasing temperature, increasing amount and type of diseases. Then environment, poorly managed sanitation services deteriorate environmental and of course carbon storage, and most importantly, greenhouse gas emissions. poorly managed sanitation services produce greenhouse gases. Evidence are coming. In fact, UNICEF is just about concluding another series of studies to further understand the GHG emissions from sanitation systems. So there are a lot of evidence coming up to show that poorly managed sanitation actually is a great contributor of greenhouse gas emissions. And we have to really need to know this, and we need to make sure we put a lot of things in place to ensure that we don't contribute to the greenhouse gas emission. As I said, this is extremely very important to set the scene for our discussions, and I won't bore you so much on that. And if you want to know more about this, definitely you can look at the slides or read more details about this. But more importantly, I think we are here to talk about the Tenka brief on climate resilient sanitation. And maybe the first question is the why. Why do we have to even go to this in the first instance? And as you can see, some of this on the slide, actually we have strategic framework for WASH climate resilient development with a lot of documents. But if we look at these documents, sanitation is scarcely mentioned, either in terms of guidance, information. So, and looking at the margin evidence, looking at the margin situation we're having, we believe that there's need for us to bridge the gap on information on climate resilient sanitation and to further enrich the policy and practice around this particular topic. So that's the main reason for developing the Tenka brief on climate resilient sanitation, to further complement all the existing framework and resources and further provide additional resources. And again, this was produced in 2022, and it's to help sector stakeholders to have a better understanding of the rationale for climate resilient sanitation, the approaches, and available resources for programming. The brief provides information on incorporating climate resilient into sanitation programming. The brief has a lot of resources that support better understanding of the climate rationale. And of course, the brief too also have opportunities for climate financing and how the waste sector can better assess it. So I think this is the first attempt of doing something like this. So of course it can be better improved. And just to say that when we were doing this, the intention was more on development setting. But again, if you look at the contents, they could be applied to maintenance contents as well. So I mean, maybe as you start using the brief, of course, we need to strengthen the maintenance part. But again, the content could be applied in the maintenance context. This Tenka brief was produced by a set of partners: Global Green Growth Institute, UN Habitat, BMGF, University of Technology Sydney, World Health Organization, Global Water Partnership, and of course UNICEF. And this group again actually launched a call to action on climate resilient sanitation, just again to further increase the global advocacy around this particular topic. Just like what was said earlier, what is climate resilient sanitation? Again, I mean, if you look at literature, there are several, there are few definitions out there, but for the purpose of this Tenka brief, this is what we have defined as climate resilient sanitation, so that we can further practicalize the way it's defined. I mean, from the definition, you can program for it, you can plan, you can look out for something on it. And just to say that WHO, UNICEF, GMP team, they are working on further indicators and definitions on this. Hopefully, things will be becoming clearer for definition of climate resilient WASH. But for the purpose of this Tenka brief, which looks very simple, this is the way the climate resilient sanitation have been defined. And I mean, if I'm to read, I won't go through everything. It's the sanitation system. Number one is both seaward and non-seaward, right? And two things we see here: services and behaviors. Because the behaviors is extremely important for us to build community resilience. We can have the services, but if behavior is not there, then it could be issues. So the whole idea is to make sure that we have systems, both seaward and non-seaward, services and behaviors, which can survive, function, or recover in the face of climate-related shocks. And of course, to ensure that fecal matter is safely contained throughout the sanitation service chain and does not contaminate the environment or emit excessive greenhouse gases or cause risk to public health. You know, this is the way we've defined CRS, or climate resilient sanitation. And of course, for this, we are talking about adaptation and mitigation. So, I mean, that's another thing you should note of when we talk about climate resilient sanitation in the context of this Tenka brief. And again, the whole idea of it is to strengthen the community resilience again, so that the household can have continuous access to sanitation services, which are essential for public health in the face of crime-related crisis. Because, of course, all of us are experts, often and often, if the facilities are not, or infrastructure are not crime resilient, they are washed away. Not only they are washed away, all the fecal matters are washed into the water bodies in the environment, contaminating the environment and posing a serious health risk. So that's one of the ways we think we can further unpack what we mean by climate resilient sanitation. Resilience to climate change is important for sanitation, just as resilient sanitation is also important for community resilience. So the whole idea is that interlinkage, the interconnectivity of the two, I think is extremely, very, very important. And yeah, this is the way we've defined it. We can have further discussion on this. And of course, for us in the sector, we look at the whole sanitation service chain in terms of the impact of climate change on the whole the components, starting from the containment to conveyance to treatment to end use. So I mean, the effect of the climate change really affects all these components. We must know how it affects them, each component, and be able to respond a program for it, if at all we want to achieve the way we've defined the climate resilient sanitation. So it's extremely very, very, very important. And all the steps of the sanitation service chain are vulnerable to climate change. So this is extremely very important, and we just have to have ways of, and this is possible both in development context and humanitarian context. More so that most of our responses now are becoming protracted crises. So I mean, you have to start picking what I'm saying, because I mean, I've worked in emergency before, so I have some experience. I know what it takes to respond. I know we want to respond very fast within the first 3-4 months or thereabout. But again, we must just have right from the planning stage the fact that if this is getting protracted, how do we incorporate climate resilient sanitation into our response, towards addressing these issues? I think it's extremely very, very important. So let's look at the criteria now. That okay, for us to say we are implementing climate resilient sanitation, what are the things we should look out for? The first is that we must conduct risk analysis, in terms of hazard exposure, vulnerability, and capacity, to identify potential impact of climate and extreme weather events, and prevent measures are being incorporated. So, I mean, we don't just wake up and say, okay, we want to do this. So there must be some analysis, as part of pre-intervention. And this could actually be done before the onset of emergency, so that as part of our pre-planning, we encourage countries to have this risk analysis. And this is another area where the development and the humanitarian sector partners can work together. So this analysis probably must be in place, should be in place before the onset of any emergency, so that once that is in place, you already know you have the report, then you can incorporate some climate resilient sanitation interventions in the response plan. And of course, the mitigation measures must be put in place to reduce the risk of sanitation system failure, and yeah, this has to be done. And the services, sanitation services and systems are designed for reliability, flexibility, robustness, and responsiveness to seasonal variability and extreme weather event. You see, e.g. during the drought, floods, or quick recovery after a shock. So all this, I know we do this in some instances, especially if you are responding to flood. And of course, you don't want to continue to repeat the same thing. And so we have to make sure that the services and system are appropriate for that type of weather event we are addressing in that particular area. Then the contingency plans and capacity are in place, anticipate, cope with, and respond to climate shocks while ensuring minimal disruption to services. Then, where possible, emissions should be reduced, and wastewater is effectively treated, reused using low carbon or nature-based solutions. So these are the criteria we have defined for ourselves, or we've put for ourselves to take into account when we are implementing or developing climate resilient sanitation intervention. It's extremely important. If you look at them, as I said earlier, this could be applicable to humanitarian context as well, especially if they are part of pre-planning steps. So of course, once emergency comes, some of the information are there, and you can just activate them into necessary action. I think this is my last slide, and of course, as I've said, I mean, there's a group, Climate Resilience Senior Coalition, working on global advocacy on this particular topic. A lot of partners are really getting involved in it, and we ask ourselves, where do we start from? Because there are a lot of actions, there are a lot of issues addressed. We are still struggling with achieving safely managed sanitation. Now we're saying climate resilient sanitation and safely managed sanitation. Let me pause here that safely managed sanitation does not necessarily mean climate resilient sanitation. It could be safely managed sanitation, but not climate resilient, and vice versa. So, and that's why we think that there must be some level of focus. And if we look at this, we have this this diagram to, okay, fine. In terms of focus, we must look for, I mean, where I think we can come in as a humanitarian partner, if we look at the center circle, where we have people living in high-risk climate impacted areas. I mean, we can work together in all the areas. I think this is where we have to break the silos, and then both development and humanitarian sector partners work together. As I've said earlier, most of the crises we are dealing to are planetary crises that involves both development and humanitarian intervention. So you can see that we could work together on, I mean, to make sure that we build the resilience of the communities. In that circle in red, showing people living in high-risk climate impacted areas. So, because I'm sure if you look at our intervention overlap in these areas. So this brings us to an area where we just have to work together if we want to really address this issue of climate resilient sanitation. Let me stop here, because again, before I stop, this is extremely very important. That we must work together is the fact that there's one UNHCR report that says that over 20 million people leave their homes due to climate change annually. They are displaced. So I want that where they go to. So they go everywhere, and we have to continue to respond to their needs. So if you are able to build that resilience, have resilience, sanitation, service, and infrastructure, when this climate event happens, they don't have to be displaced, and we don't have to continue to respond to emergency situation every year because of this climate event. So let me stop here, and thanks so much for your attention. And I hope we enjoy the rest of the webinar. Thanks. Over to you.
Thank you, BC, also for staying like perfectly within the time. So that's really appreciated. Also, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Marij. I work with the Netherlands Red Cross, and I'm coordinating the SANIHUB community, which is one of the co-facilitators of this call. So we have 5 minutes for questions to BC. So feel free to either, if you have a question, to raise your hand, you can find the raising your hand option at the 3-dot option at the lowest bar in the Zoom screen under reactions, or you can put your question in the chat. Yes, there is one hand up. Please feel free to open your mic and pose your question.
Good evening.
Hello, good evening. Please go ahead. Yes.
I'm Jim Musa from South Sudan, Upper Nile, Eastern Malakal. My question is what is the cause of climate change? The cause of the climate change.
So I didn't get that question.
My question is what is the cost? The cost of the climate change. Yes.
Cost
of climate resilience.
Okay. I got it. Sorry. Okay. Maybe you can take more questions then, so that to save time, you can respond.
Fine. Is there any other?
Okay. If there are no questions, I think that's a very brilliant question you've asked, and that's what we struggle with. For example, we are pushing sector to move from basic sanitation to civil managed sanitation. It's at a cost. Now we're not even saying that, okay, it's not sufficient enough because of the impact of climate change on sanitation. We want to ensure that all our infrastructure and services are climate proof and climate resilient. It's at a cost, right? In terms of absolute cost, I don't really have the figure, because again, it depends. But to achieve climate resilient sanitation, definitely is at a cost, and that was why we are working on mobilizing or to ensure that we have increase in percentage of climate financing that goes to climate resilient sanitation. Because we can't be saying let's shift to this, and we all know definitely it's going to be at a cost, especially at household level. That's very frank, especially at household level. I mean, because again, if you have to break this down to household level, the household in most countries pick the cost of the infrastructure, the toilets, right? If I have to simplify it. So not even the government. So we say, okay, you guys move this into a higher level. No, it's not enough. Move to climate resilience. So we'll give them the money to do that. Then that's the question. So we don't, for me, I don't really have the cost on top of my head, but just to say, yes, it's a rational cost. It's a necessary cost we have to look for, either domestic or external financing for us to have climate. It doesn't make sense that, especially in flood-prone area, to be having toilets constructed every year, right? Because the flood comes, sweep it away, another time away. So if you look at the long-term impact, it's better to invest that initial capital, make it climate proof, then you can have a long-term use than say we don't have money, build a non-resilient sanitation services that is blown off every year, destroyed every year, or during the what's it called, the weather events, all the effluents go to the environment. So there are a lot of cost implications, direct or indirectly. So yeah, to summarize, we don't even have the absolute figure. Maybe that's something we may have to work on as part of our advocacy brief to say, okay, fine, what does it mean? Either per capital cost of having this climate resilient science. So I think that's something we can work on. So I hope that suffices for now. Thanks.
Thanks, BC.
Okay, thank you.
And also thank you, Yima, for that question. I think it's also good to keep that question in mind for the later discussion. Also because this technical brief that BC very clearly presented, thank you for that, BC, is of course developed for the whole sector. While we are focusing on the humanitarian world, where we're all aware of current funding gaps. So I think it's a very relevant discussion to keep in mind. Or to continue later, like what is the cost implication actually of climate resilience? Yeah, so thank you. So now, because of the time, I'm handing over the mic to Baudouin from IOM, Roman from Veolia, and Santiago, who's working as a consultant with IOM, on the pilot, on the first case study that I allow you to introduce. So over to you.
Hello, everyone. Can you see my screen?
Yes, and hear you clearly too.
Great. Good morning, good afternoon to those in different time zones. So I'm Baudouin Luce, working with the Global WASH Unit of IOM in Geneva. Today, I will be presenting with my colleague, Dr. Santiago Septien, consultant for IOM, and Romain Vercher, Innovation Program Manager for the Veolia Foundation, a case study on an innovative project funded by ELRA, Humanitarian Innovation Fund. So the objective of the innovation project is to pilot solar thermal pasteurization as a mechanism of pathogen reduction for wastewater treatment with a specific focus on Vibrio cholera. Okay. There's no innovation without partnership. So this project brings together local and international partners. Our first partner, the Veolia Foundation, provides the technology and know-how thanks to their innovation program and technical expertise. The system they have designed is a compact and mobile device that uses solar thermal panels to create pasteurization conditions and that can inactivate pathogen in wastewater. Our second partner is the International Center for Diarrheal Disease Research Center, ICDDRB, which is a research institute based in Dhaka. So for the project, they are in charge to collect and test samples to measure the reduction of different type of pathogen and evaluate the performance of the system. From the IOM side, we are in charge of leading the techno-economic analysis to evaluate the replicability of the technology for potential scaling of the solution to other humanitarian settings. In addition, we have our standby partners, the RVO DRSS and IHE Delft, who are supporting the project by seconding the lab technician to test the effect of temperature and exposure time in lab conditions. So thanks to them, we managed to provide further evidence on the solution effectiveness. Before looking into the details of the innovative solution, we will start by giving a brief background on the problem identification and climate risk. So the Rohingya refugee camp face significant climate-related hazards, which increase the sanitation and public health issue in the camp. First, we have frequent flooding. So due to the heavy rain during the monsoon and some part of the camp being situated in low-lying areas, flooding is quite a frequent hazard, which can lead to water contamination and which increase the risk of cholera and other waterborne disease. Cyclone, the camp are located in a cyclone-prone region. Storm often cause severe damage to infrastructure. Landslide, deforestation, and overcrowding in hilly areas increase the risk of a landslide. We have also heat wave that is coupled with strong wind and low humidity that increase the risk of fire in the camp. So this can lead to the destruction of infrastructure and increase the overall vulnerability of the camp. So in addition to frequent hazards, climate risks are also increased by the vulnerability and lack of capacity. So because of the high population density in the camp, there is insufficient space to install adequate wastewater treatment system, which make it challenging to manage climate resilient sanitation system effectively. The risk is further increased by factors such as deforestation, which increase the likelihood of landslide, as well as the camp, as I said before, location, low-lying and flood-prone areas, which exacerbates the risk of public health issues. And in addition, the technical capacity to operate and maintain complex wastewater treatment system is also quite low, which makes the management of advanced system complicated. So all these factors increase the camp's vulnerability, exposure to climate hazard, and limit its capacity to respond effectively. So as a result, there is a critical need for innovative, space-efficient, climate-resilient, and easy-to-operate solution. With this in mind, at the initial stage of the project, we explore different mechanisms for pathogen reduction that are not only space efficient and climate resilient, but also easy to operate and capable of targeting specific pathogen, as in our case, cholera. After a review of the literature review and discussion with several partners, including university and the private sector, in particular with the Veolia Foundation, it became more and more interesting to study the pasteurization as a mechanism of pathogen inactivation, which can help reduce the risk of cholera and can provide a scalable solution in densely populated humanitarian crisis. For the purpose of the pilot project, we choose to adapt the solar thermal pasteurizer to the IOM DWATS, as you can see here in the picture. This system has been implemented by the IOM Bangladesh mission since 2018 and is now widely used in the camp, with 38 facilities in 12 camps, assisting around 200,000 people. This system already presents interesting aspects. Each facility can serve more than 5,000 people with only a surface of 120 square meters, so it doesn't require a lot of space. It's environmentally friendly. There's no need of power supply or chemical. It's easy to operate and maintain. It doesn't require any specific skills. Material needed for the installation are quite cheap and locally available. And the system is totally sealed, so there's no smell or exposure to wastewater. So the addition of solar thermal pasteurization as a final stage of the system to eliminate the remaining pathogen made a lot of sense. So I will now pass the floor to my colleague Romain from the Veolia Foundation, who will present the solution in more details.
Yes, thank you, Baudouin. I hope you can hear me well. So in order to address the problematics mentioned by Baudouin, Veolia Foundation have worked closely with IOM to develop a solar thermal pasteurizer that we call SANIHUB Solar. So I will describe here the main feature, then present the concept of this solution, and then show you our pilot installation in Cox's Bazar. I must precise that this solution is an adaptation of the SANIHUB 500, which is a fecal sludge treatment solution using both anaerobic digestion and pasteurization. The biogas produced at anaerobic digestion stage will be used internally for pasteurization. So here, only pasteurization and solar energy. Under its pilot version, this solution is aimed to hygienize sludge for 800%, around 500 liters, with the overall treatment objective of 99.9%, making the effluent an hygienized liquid, safe for any disposal, harmless for population, environment, but also for the water resource. Veolia Foundation have designed and standardized this solution for emergency conditions, taking into consideration that it needs to be easily and quickly deployable and operable by local teams, as also Baudouin said. As per our emergency solution, the Aquaforce, which is another solution that we have at Veolia Foundation, the solution is aimed to be turnkey, which means all the equipment are included in the solution when we deliver it. It requires no construction, it's modular, movable, and dismantleable. And its main feature is that it has been designed to require very low energy for the treatment. So, and as previously said, this solution is based on pasteurization process, which main following characteristics are, it's a method for pathogen inactivation. It leads to destruction of damage of the cell with the effect of temperature. The performance of pasteurization increase at higher temperature and exposure time. And the thermal resistance of pathogen varies according to species and strain. Next slide, yes. So here is the schematic process flow diagram that describes our concept. Here you can see the pasteurizer. It's a 500 liter batch double skin tank playing a role of a big heat exchanger. So this will be fed by gravity or with a dedicated pump with the contaminated effluent from the dewat outlet. Then the temperature of the sludge will be raised here during 1 hour with temperature going from 50 to 70 degrees. Then this temperature rise will be done with thermal solar energy. On the other side, we will deploy thermal solar panels that will heat up water up to 90 degrees, and this hot water will be stored in an intermediate water tank. In this way, hot water production and hot water use will be uncoupled, allowing a buffer energy management and extra operation time. Pasteurization is made homogeneous with a mixer that also allows better heat transfer inside the exchanger. And we have circulation pumps that will force water to play its energy transfer fluid role along the process. A bypass connection allows us to bring very high temperature water inside the pasteurizer, when we have peaks of irradiation at midday. And once the effluent is hygienized, pasteurized is drained by gravity or with a pump. Then, so last June 2024, Veolia Foundation experts have deployed the equipment on the field. I am currently in Cox's Bazar right now for a data collection and capitalization mission. It consists in a 15 panel, as you can see. Plus, for the purpose of the pilot study, we also installed 1,500 liter storage tank. And you can see also the pasteurizer itself, which is a homemade design by Veolia Foundation, and all the other hydraulic equipment for the moment that are mounted like this. This pilot has been running for a few months. We already have made improvements, making the system more robust and more efficient, and more improvement to come to make it even simpler. The objective are to increase the volume of effluent treated per day with an optimized use of the equipment installed and raised up to 1,500 to 2,000 liters of sludge treated per day. Then I will now pass the floor to my colleague Santiago, consultant for IOM, who will present the study in more details. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introduction. So Here are the key objectives of the pilot project. To validate the thermal model, the first objective is to validate the thermal efficiency of the pasteurization system under real field conditions, including different environmental and operational variables. In other words, we would like to reach 70 degrees in the pasteurizer for minimum 1 hour. Then the second objective is to define the optimal temperature and exposure time required to ensure effective pasteurization and in our specific context. And then the third objective of our research, our study, is to we wanted to confirm the inactivation of critical pathogens in the context of Bangladesh and the Rohingya camp, such as the Vibrio cholera, Salmonella, rotavirus, helminths, and Escherichia coli, and that will ensure the technology can effectively eliminate the health risk for can prevent any outbreak. Another objective is to assess the maximum treatment capacity and look for possibilities to improve and optimize the solar pasteurizer for better performance and try to maximize the maximum amount of effluent that can be treated. And finally, we wanted to perform techno-economical analysis and replicability analysis. And this is crucial to ensure the adaptation of the technology beyond the pilot stage. And yes, and we wanted to, and it's very important, is to make sure that this technology is replicable in other humanitarian settings in the world. We wanted to, in fact, we want to ensure that this solution can be scaled up and applied in any humanitarian crisis. So to achieve this objective, we have conducted a collaborative approach with various key partners that already were introduced at the beginning of this presentation, and each one was contributing with their expertise and different aspects of the project. And this multi-partner approach that you can see in the slide, the methodology, can ensure that the solar thermal pasteurization technology is regularly tested, validated, and optimized, both in the field and lab settings, with a clear focus, potential scalability. As we don't know, we don't have received yet the results from the ICDRB, because this the testing of the results, testing of the pasteurizer is quite recent. So we still don't have not all the full results from the pasteurization test. So we will briefly present microbial results that were carried out by IHE Delft internship in their lab using a heading steering plate that was simulating the pasteurization process. The tests were done at experimental conditions where the solar pasteurizer could be operated according to the thermal model validation, namely temperatures ranging from 50 to 80 degrees Celsius and exposure time between 15 to 120 minutes. The results, as we can see in the graphs, the results were quite positive, showing the inactivation effect of temperature on the reduction of E. coli. We could obviously, as we increase the temperature, we reduce the time of inactivation. We observed that to achieve 99.9% of reduction of E. coli, or also 3 logs reduction, we could operate the pasteurization at 50 degrees Celsius for 90 minutes, or for 40 minutes at 60 degrees Celsius, or 20 minutes at 70 degrees Celsius, or 10 minutes at 80 degrees Celsius. In parallel, based on data from literature, we estimated on how different pathogens can be deactivated at specific temperatures and time intervals at the solar pasteurizer operating conditions. So, as we can see in the graph, in this diagram, which is very used in the sanitation sector, it's a classical support from literature. Vibrio cholerae is known to be sensitive to heat. At temperatures of 50 degrees Celsius, Vibrio cholerae can be effectively deactivated in less than 5 minutes. Cholera is one of the major waterborne pathogens of concern, and so we can see that this can be deactivated quite rapidly at 50 degrees. Moving on, Salmonella and Ascaris are a bit more heat resistant than cholera. However, to ensure complete activation of these pathogens, a temperature of 60 degrees is required with an exposure time of around 15 minutes. Another pathogen of concern, Shigella, requires more extended exposure to heat for safe deactivation. This one at 60 degrees Celsius takes about 60 minutes to completely being deactivated. To ensure maximum safety in pasteurization, we introduce what we call the safety zone, which is an area where basically all the we can assume that many pathogens are deactivated, as we can see here in the graph. If we increase the temperature to 65 degrees and maintain it for 60 minutes, we can achieve this safety zone, or alternatively, if we raise the temperature to 70 degrees Celsius and we expose the fecal sludge to 50 minutes, we can expect that we also will arrive to the safety zone with the activation of various pathogens. So now, passing to the conclusions, what we have obtained so far are that the solar pasteurization is effective in destroying pathogens, including Vibrio cholerae at 50 degrees Celsius, which is a quite low temperature, and various microbes and parasites at 70 degrees, with exposure times ranging from 50 minutes to 60 minutes, ensuring that the treated sludge is safe from health risk to the communities. In terms of capacity, the technology shown the possibility to treat 2,000 liters per day, and with further optimization, we expect to arrive to 3,000 liters per day, making it scalable for larger operations. Looking forward, we see the potential for applying this technology in other locations within the Rohingya camp, such as hospital, where sanitation and pathogens control are critical, and especially with the wastewater from hospital is loaded with pathogens. Secondly, this pathogen could be replicated in other settlements, providing a scalable, effective solution for wastewater treatment in various humanitarian settings. Then I want to finish to make the link about this sanitation with the climate resilience topic of this webinar. So the solar pasteurization technology already has demonstrated the future of a climate resilient technology. It is fully sealed, easy to operate, and has low operating costs since it doesn't rely on chemicals. This makes it highly adaptable to settings facing challenges like limited space, flooding and landslide risks. It also addresses the increasing risk of cholera and waterborne diseases, which are expected to be increased by the climate change. Finally, these systems rely on solar thermal energy, which everybody knows it's a sustainable solution, green solution with low greenhouse gas emissions. However, one question remains, and this is that can technology alone make a system resilient, climate resilient? If only one part of the system is resilient, we cannot fully address the risks. Therefore, we need to build climate resilient sanitation system that strengthen community resilience to extreme weather events, because we have to see this, tackle this problem in a holistic optic approach. Many thanks. So I would like to thanks for you for listening to this presentation, and also I would like to thank to all the partners and people involved in this project. Thanks.
Thank you, Santiago, and the other other presenters. Super interesting presentation, and also clear link and question posts for the discussion later. I see some questions in the chat, but please keep them for our final discussion, which will start after the next case study. So I'm handing the mic now to Mohammed from Archinova. Mohammed, can you hear me?
Yes.
Ah, great. Welcome.
Noman, if you have trouble with sharing your presentation, I can also share it, and you just tell me when I have to switch the slides. Please let me know how we do it.
Can you share the last version? I share it with you.
Yeah, I have it opened.
Sure.
So give me a second. Now you should be able to see my screen, and now I switch to the presenter mode.
Yeah.
Okay, please, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Mahmoud. I'm working with Archinova Ethiopia country lead. So I will be presenting a very small activity that is being implemented in Somaliland. So under the project ECT WASH, it's a global project which is more on climate and green humanitarian aid. So we will see next slides. Can you go please next slide? Yeah, as I mentioned it, the project background, you can see the title. It is all about local climate sensitive and universal wash capacity using and disseminating the green humanitarian aid. So as you can see, the project title, it's all about local capacity building in the face of green humanitarian aid and climate risks. This project started in 2023, November, and will continue until 2026, October. Specifically, this project location is north of Somalia, where we call Somaliland. And the project objective is vulnerable community have inclusive wash capacities that take into account the impact of climate and environmental risks and are able to prepare for and anticipate proactive humanitarian assistance in response to extreme weather events. Quite long objective. Can you go to the next slide? So normally in the area of project implementation, we have two extreme climate effects. One is the drought. This drought has been observed for the last 10 years, becoming abnormal. You know, when we implemented this project, we have seen the community share it. The drought has now become every other year almost. So they have faced one of the great challenge of climate change. The second hazard is flooding. On top of this also, there is extreme and abnormal flooding. So we identified the community are facing the extremes of these two, either very dry, long season, that water becomes very big issue, and the second, abnormal flooding, so that affecting almost all livelihood. So in a specific activity we are taking you today is, we did a survey on the sanitation facility. We have observed the latrines are one of the badly damaged infrastructures in the community, especially the community in the rural area where they use decomposing type of latrines, and also very poor quality latrines. So it becomes really a challenge for the community. And the second thing is enough water is not there, so water really is very scarce. So sometimes we have seen also the community with waterborne disease, especially with the hand washing issue. So in latrines, it's a dry bit latrine where you can't hardly find water being used for the latrines. So these were the two major issues we have identified. Second, for these latrines, during our site selection, we identified the best suitable position, especially when we implement institutional latrines. So in consultation with parent-teacher association and children also from the school, it was possible to also consider all these inclusions. The second important thing was also we tried to identify the shallow aquifers around the area that it is within the minimum advisable distance to be away from the aquifer or the shallow well area. Other important issue we considered was orientation, or the where we put the latrines. So that was also because the area is very windy area, and also to avoid any smell taking to the children, and also offending them sometimes to use the latrines. Can you go to the next slide? Okay, the type of latrine we came was somehow already in the cluster of Somaliland. I hope this you can see it is designed in case against the extreme dry season, and also against the flooding, a bit elevated type of latrine, so that the area was mostly inundated with flooding. So the site selection was very important. First, to be selected a suitable position. The second was the latrine can withstand using local material. Local material is with stone and sand, also some cement. So we did also the bit sizing with according to the school children, including boys and girls. The bit size is exactly designed according to the number, and with some projections on the number of increasing the community of the school. And also the other thing against the drought, we developed a roof catchment system that also makes sure permanent water, at least for the latrine, is there, so that even during the dry season, they can still manage to use the water from the roof catchment tank. And also what we consider it is lining, because the soil type is very loose. It's fine with some coarse, so the sludge can easily be dislodged anytime, so that they can use it even in the future, so they don't leave when it's get full, as we have seen in the area. So this is a design that we have implemented also. When we did the feasibility study and the baseline survey, it was almost good responses. So we are expecting at the end of the project, within the final evaluation, we will come up also the analysis and the result of the activity. Can you go to the next slide? So this is somehow the picture after completing, and also some of the design considerations when we were doing the climate resilient latrine. The sizing was very important because of the population in in the school should be accommodated. The material we have used also was local material mostly, so we don't create also environmental impact. The other important thing, ventilation, was make sure so that it is properly reducing the odor and improve airflow. The latrine also was equipped with hand washing facilities, that the drainage of the hand washing was also directed towards the septic tank, so that it will still mix with the sludge so that it can easily be dislodged. So it will not create a drainage problem around the latrine, as we have seen some local latrines in the area. So the other thing, maintain accessibility. We make sure it is with the handrail, with the disability friendly, and also the context of the local community was very important. We use one block of latrine for the boys and one block for girls. This is also the local context. You know, some of the area we use gender segregated, one block with different direction of doors. But in the context of this community, that does not work. So we have to use separated, one block for girls away from the boys, at least 50 meters. So it makes sure the user friendly. The maintenance, we have also engaged with the parents and teachers association, as well some students to be part. So we established school wash club, so they will take care, and at least also they are trained on the hand washing. And yeah, can you go please the next slide? Yeah, this is making sure, as I mentioned it, to be friendly with the children, so that boys and girls got separate 2 blocks, different blocks, 50 meters away from each other, so girls don't shy away from using latrines. So we encourage girls also equally to use, and also with some disability to use easily inside the rooms with handrails, and also the platform for the wheelchair. Go please. And also the privacy wall was very important, especially when they are doing the hand wash. Next slide. Yeah, then this is an early indication. Even though we will do the end-line evaluation, we have already noted that there is some encouraging responses from the community, especially for the girl dropouts, when there is initially it was fully no latrines, so open defecation, so girls will not go to school because they are fear of this open defecation. So that we have noted that significant number of school girls have increased, and also those dropout declined significantly. But anyhow, we are planning to do an end-line evaluation that will more clearly and scientific way of identifying what changes really. So can you go please the next slide? Yeah, this is also the climate resilience to increase. So we have engaged to establish a committee, especially the parents in the school. So they do the operation maintenance, and also they do some fundraising for dislodging. So they come up with their plan, how they use commercial dislodging trucks, and also identification already done with them, the disposing site, and how they use, especially for maybe some people are using for farm fertilizer, and also some are using like this. So we also engaged with them to do increase the capacity of the rainwater harvesting tank, which is there also to increase as the number of the school community increases, especially the children, to come up with that plan. So we established a committee that maintains the sustainability of this sludge management, and also that information is passed to every community member that's using the school. Next slide. Yeah, during the implementation of this activity, there was some challenge. I think we have closed it to 3 points. One of these was limitation on the water storage. We have seen the community is already struggling extreme water scarcity. So they would rather prefer drinking water rather than going water to the toilet. So that was one of the challenge. The other important challenge was awareness. There was lack of or enough awareness among the community of the school, especially students, about latrine usage, because there was really a lot of open defecation that greatly contribute a lot of contamination, especially during the dry season. And this community is using as an alternative water source for collecting rainwater, because groundwater is limited to some specific area. So they will collect mostly the rainwater with some underground traditional way of building what we call birka, or some cemented structure underground. So they collected the rainwater. So all water running will be captured by someone, or privately, or maybe community-owned structure. So this has contributed, especially when it comes to open defecation, and waterborne disease was one of the top diseases we identified. The other challenge we are facing in school also, because of the limitation of the capacity of the local community, lack some important infrastructure like fencing and some private seating for the girls. So these are also some of the challenges. This is the summary of this activity from this project. And thank you very much. Back to you, Torst.
Thank you very much.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for presentation, Mahmoud. And I think we can move into the questions. We're a little bit behind on our schedule, but I think that's okay. There's a couple of questions asked in the chat. There's already also some questions answered in the chat by Romano, by Santiago. And we also prepared some discussion points, but let us start with questions on the case studies. So feel free to raise your hand. There is also one question in the chat that hasn't been answered yet, and that's from Khaled, and he is saying, if this is a question still to the first case study, he's saying usually the relevant characteristics of wastewater to be decreased and removed are COD, BOD, etc. Would you clarify about having different parameters to measure the efficiency, focusing on the pathogens? And then a follow-up question on what about winter season and rainy days? Can I hand over to you, Santiago?
Yeah, I will answer this question. So thanks a lot for your. I was writing in the chat, but I will finish to. I prefer to answer orally. So our process focus in the destruction of pathogens and does not have a significant effect on the physiochemical parameters. And in fact, our system was not designed for this. Our system was not designed to completely treat the fecal sludge, but rather to be incorporated in a system that already treating the sludge, and it's going to be like an add-on that will allow to. This add-on will be specific for the pasteurization, for killing the pathogens. We did some tests, carried out some analysis of the physiochemical characteristics of the fecal sludge that we were treating with pasteurizer, and we noticed that as we were assuming initially, the effect of heating in the sludge didn't have a considerable effect in the physiochemical properties, only in the COD a little bit, as we observed a slight decrease, which could be explained because the temperature can hydrolyze some molecules. Some molecules are sensitive to heat, so it can destroy some organic molecules. And the other is we also observed a slight decrease of nitrogen in the form of ammonia, and this is normal because we know that the wastewater usually have a lot of can have our wastewater, our sludge has a lot of ammonium. So when we heat, this ammonium can be transformed into ammonia and can be volatilized. But as I told you, this decrease is minimal. And then with respect to other questions about what happened in the winter season and rainy season, what is the strategy in these cases? Well, actually winter is the best month to work with solar in Bangladesh, because Bangladesh is located in the tropical belt in the planet, so it always receives good solar irradiance. And the winter is characterized because there is almost no rain, almost no clouds, so it's a lot of clear skies. So the sun is going to penetrate into the land and could be used for pasteurization. So actually is the best month, which might be different in more north or very north or very south latitudes in this planet. And then and the other thing, however, yes, the rain could be a little more problematic because yes, the clouds cover doesn't allow the sunlight to penetrate and to arrive to the land, to arrive to the collectors. So yes, can be a little problematic. And in this moment, but this is a problem that all solar installations are facing. So usually we try to store when we have excess. One of our strategies for that is when we the moments when we have a lot of sun, and we use it for pasteurization, but we're also going to have an excess solar radiation. So we'll try to use this excess solar radiation to store it in the tanks, in some tanks where so we are going to store this solar energy as form of hot water in tanks. So when it's raining, we're going to use this hot water for heating the pasteurizer. This is one strategy. Other strategy is using also, if this storage is not enough, we can use other sources for energy. And in this moment, it's part of the study to try to identify different options for this. They are like couples of biogas or using biomass, boilers, etc., etc. So we have other alternatives that we are going to study. Always focusing to be as much as possible climate respecting the being climate resilient. So yes, and hopefully at the end of this study we will propose a set of alternatives, a set of options to be able to operate during rainy days. And yes, this is part of the techno-economical analysis that we are doing.
Thank you, Santiago, and also Khaled, who asked the question, is saying thanks for the clarification. Amazing job. There's another question to the IOM team from Niloy, who is saying, great to know the system, super interesting. How is the CapEx and the OpEx? Any comments around scalability in wide scale? Who can take up that question?
Yeah, I mean, I can reply very quickly because this is very much ongoing. We are now still analyzing, seeing how we can improve, optimize the system to decrease the capex, because of course now it's a pilot, so we pull the full capacity in the system. We want to optimize the volume per day to decrease the capex per cubic meter. So this is part of the study, but it's not yet completed, so I cannot give you exact figure on that. OpEx is quite low because it was mentioned during the presentation. There is no chemical use. Everything is solarized, so there's no really need for specific skills and also cost for the operation, a part of human cost. And yeah, if we develop more hybrid system and we need to use during the rainy season with a generator, yes, there will be cost of fuel, etc. But it's not very high. But it's still ongoing. the economic analysis will be really done this month actually. So
thank you. That's it's a work in progress, right? Then there's another question from Mila, specifically to Santiago. Which temperature time combination would you recommend to best preserve the nutrients contained in the fecal fiber?
Thanks a lot, Mila. Well, basically, as I mentioned before, the physiochemical parameters are not really affected by heating, except a slight decrease of nitrogen as a form of ammonia. So yes, you can use any in our range of temperature that we have tested, which is up to 80 degrees Celsius, 50 to 80 degrees Celsius. We have not observed any alteration of the content of the phosphorus and potassium, just the nitrogen, as mentioned, will decrease a little bit, around 10%, a little less than 10%. Due to the heating, due to this loss of ammonia. This ammonia, because as you should know, our pH is around 9, so we are in an equilibrium between the ammonia, ammonium and ammonium. So if we heat, for sure, we're going to push this ammonia to volatilize. So there is a little volatilization, loss of ammonia by volatilization, but not so much. If it could be overcome by, if we wanted to not lose zero ammonia, that could be overcome by maybe adding a chemical that will reduce the pH to 7. In that case, all the nitrogen will be ammonium, and ammonium is not volatile. But yes, there is no big effects in the nutrient content. So we can heat at any temperature at any time, and it should be mostly not too much changes.
Thank you. Yeah, so Mila's also thanking you in the chat. So we have 10 more minutes. I think there's no more new questions. So then we can move to the discussion points that we as the organizers, so with the Climate Change Technical Working Group and German WASH Network and SANIHUB, posted. These are big questions and we will not be able to deal with all of them. But I would just like to throw in the group the first one, because in this conversation we've had a very nice presentation from BC on guidance on climate resilient sanitation. Very clearly acknowledge that that's developed for wider sanitation, not specifically to humanitarian context. In this room, anybody wants to share their idea, maybe just people joining the call or the presenters, do you feel we have enough guidance and knowledge and expertise in the sector to implement climate resilient sanitation in that humanitarian context? Anybody would like to share their thoughts on that?
Just to say a word on, this is Engineer George Omara from For Africa. And from the first question, when you look at do we have enough guidance, knowledge, and expertise, I think I'm talking at the engineering point of view. When you look at this, it all goes to the selection of sites. And you can see from the presentation from Somalia, as an engineer or as a WASH engineer who is on a project, there are key things that you need to put at the back of your mind to make sure that your facilities that you're going to create is actually going to be climate resilient. From the site layout, for example, if there's an emergency of over 5,000 people who have arrived, how do you put at the back of your mind that where am I going to put this big number of people in a particular place. So as an engineer who is on this response, I think the first thing you will look at the layout of the site, considering that the location of the population should be in a place that would not be floody or would have like a place where there's waterlogged. So I think this creating awareness, the expertise that to me I think is there, but creating awareness to make sure that you are more aware during the design, during the site location, and all this should actually be at your fingertip as an engineer. So I think part of this discussion is creating awareness to make sure that people are aware in each and everything that they do, that climate change is actually available, and whatever infrastructure or facilities that we put in place should be resistant, should be resilient to climate change. And to me, that is what I could add on. Or consider if you look at the presentation from Somalia, actually tell you that the engineer has a greater role to really to play to ensure that where we are putting this infrastructure is actually very, very key in the sustainability of wash infrastructure to withstand the effect of climate change.
Thank you. That's really appreciated. So if I get you right, you're saying it's also not only guidance and knowledge, it's something we should as engineers know, but it's about awareness, and there is still some space for improvement there. Thanks for that. Roman, you want to come in?
Yes, and I do agree what have been said just right now. Thank you. I just wanted to emphasize that at Veolia Foundation, I speak from my point of view. We have, I mean, Veolia Group. I don't know if everybody knows this company, but it's a company specialized in water, sanitation, energy, and wastewater. And we have a foundation for who I work, Veolia Foundation, and our objective is to promote our expertise and to make our expertise available for the humanitarian community. So this is what we made here with this project, the case study we presented. We decided before this project to develop this kind of solutions. We want to propose solutions from the water and sanitation field that our experts are used to work with, like in their everyday job, and to adapt this solution to the humanitarian sector. So we are making the bridge between the humanitarian and the professionals. And we try as much as possible to bring this professional to humanitarian context for them also to better understand what are the problematics. And that's also the case when I said we send 2 experts in the field here with IOM to implement the system. So they were implicated from the design, they were implicated also for the settlement, and they will be also implicated for the operation manual and etc. So we try to involve them at any stage to make their expertise available for the community. And this happens through a very strong partnership that we have with IOM. I also mentioned that we have partnership with MSF France, and we have projects for UV-LED treatment for wastewater in Haiti, for example, but any other organization, that Solidarité Internationale as well. We are working with them a lot, and we work with them in Sitwe in 2018. So this is what we can do, and our purpose is really to give and to let our expertise being used in a better way with our humanitarian colleagues.
Thanks. So offer of additional support, that's appreciated. Any other? Anna, you wanted to come in, or was that not intentional? No? Okay. So maybe then, and feel free also, like Shoban said, that if you have ideas and comments to share, also feel free to put them in the chat, as specifically the climate change working group of the technical working group of the Global WASH Cluster is going to take this to the next phase. Maybe we have quickly time to address one more question, and I think it would be nice if there is any thoughts to be shared on who should be leading on this. Like specifically when we talk about awareness, we need, and that was also clearly coming out of the the criteria and the guideline that BC presented, that a very big component is being aware of specific risks, right? Like what is in your specific context climate change look like? To do those risk analysis and to use that in your work, who should be leading? Is it something for independent organizations? Is it something for local or national WASH clusters or sectors? Who should be in lead? And I see your hand up, Torsten.
Thank you, Marae. Yeah, I also wanted to touch up on BC's presentation and the question, not directly the question you've been asking, but the question how far this technical guidance is for the field of humanitarian or for the development. And I think there are a lot of things included in this guidance already, which can be applied also in the humanitarian field. It's just a question of a gradual process. Yeah, if we are talking about immediate emergency aid, I think there's not much time to think about climate resilience. But very soon, in the second step, this should be considered. And if you have a wider planning, or if you if you're in the transition to a longer project, there, I think it has to play a bigger. It automatically has a higher relevance then. And so we have always to consider how far we dive into the topic, depending on which stage we are in. I think that's very important. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I fully agree with that you also need to be realistic in which phase you are and what resources you have. Engineer Omara?
Yeah, so I think in terms of who should be leading, however, yeah, I know WASH cluster is always on the lead for all WASH-related activities in terms of coordination, but also in coordination with the local government or the local authorities in those areas. So for me, it should be led locally with the technical support from the WASH cluster in terms of setting, because for us, like climate-related activities are not taken up. We at that level, we need to set up a technical working group specifically to look at issues to do with climate-related resilient activities as far as WASH is concerned. So it is where now the WASH cluster come in to develop kind of guideline to help the humanitarian actors who are in that particular response on what needs to be done, because humanitarian response kind of tracks quite a number of people coming from different parts of the place. But that's why it should be a joint effort, both the WASH cluster, but also the local authority who understand the dynamics, the climate history of that location. Then they are able to provide guidance. For example, the flood history in a place, it's the local authority who should be able to provide us with that information. The nature of the soil, for example, I had been in Somalia, where, for example, where the guy who was presenting, there's a place where flood comes and clear all the latrine. So you can only get that information from the local authorities who have better information about the history of the place. So it cannot be done in isolation of the local authorities. So it's a combined effort, both the WASH cluster to provide technical guidance, but also the local authority to give us the historical background of the location where the emergency or where people have settled, to help us come up with the right kind of infrastructure to withstand the climate shocks.
Thank you for that. I think I couldn't agree more with your view. With that, I would like to hand over to Chopin. I know I've been spending a little bit too much time on the discussion, while there is some closing words to be said before we move. Maybe I can address this one still, that at the SANIHUB, so sanihub.info, we have a help desk. So if there is any of you working in the humanitarian field facing practical sanitation challenges, do reach out, because we have a team of humanitarian experts super ready to help you, also in the field of climate resilience, but it's a very wide scope that we have. So go to sanihub.info and click on Get Help from an Expert. Over to you, Siobhan.
Thank you, and thank you again to all the speakers for helping us, and all the participants for starting to think about climate resilience and how we can build this into our work. So a couple of final points. The first one is that if you have been inspired to take action, we recommend this new toolbox as a starting point. This was just released last month. It's a product from the Climate Change Working Group. And if you follow that QR code, it will bring you to that toolbox, which should give you some resources to start your journey in climate resilience for WASH and sanitation. As well, as we said, today was just the starting point for a wider discussion that's going to happen over the next 11 months. So we'd really like to have you all involved in future consultations around developing the framework, so that we develop something that's really useful to you and that you can use it in your work. So if you follow the second QR code, it will bring you to a registration form where we can collect your email address, your name, and come back to you at a later stage over the next few months. So with that, a final thank you to our speakers and to the partners who joined us today to help make this webinar happen, and look forward to meeting you all again in future to talk more about this issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Siobhan. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
2, 1, 1,
Thank you.
5,
Bye.
4, 2, 6, 0, 8, 3, 1. Anruf von 0, 2, 1, 1, 5.